Lake, and welcome to this, the second video that goes with the third edition of my book, the Strategic Planning Workbook. This one is about customers, and we're going to cover three topics. We're going to think about the customers from your point of view, customers from their point of view, and potential customers. Let's start with the first of those. When you think about customers from your point of view, you're really thinking about how much money they make for you. So you might be thinking about how much in the way of total sales they generate or how much profit they generate for you. And we're going to have a look at both those kinds of analysis. First of all, let's think about total sales. So rank order your customers by the amount of sales that they generate for you in total pounds. If you're a big department store, you're going to have a very long list of customers. You're probably only going to be interested in that top section of the list. If you're another kind of business where you've only got sort of several hundred customers or into 1,000 or thereabouts, you're going to want to have a look at that whole list. So put all your customers down in terms of the volume of sales they make in dollar terms and put information in 4 columns. First of those 4 columns, who are the customers? Second of those 4 columns, what's the total sales that they generate for you per year? Third column, how much do you think they might generate for you in the coming 12 months, in the coming year? And the last column, how much do you think they might generate for you in the coming 3 years? So your table should look something like this. So when you created a table like that, you might think, oh look, here's a familiar list of customers. We recognize all of these because we talk about these because they generate the greatest number of sales. But are those customers the most profitable customers for your organization? That's a really good question. So create a second table which shows those same customers, but now instead of by sales, we're looking at by profit. Now, don't make this too complicated. Don't sort of look at lost opportunities and weighted cost of funds and all this kind of stuff. Otherwise, you'll be there forever trying to do the analysis. Just basically look at how much does this customer generate for you, how much does it cost you to serve that customer, do a little bit of a calculation and work out how profitable each customer is, and put those on a table which looks similar to the last table, but now you're rank ordering by profit, and it should look something like this. When you do the analysis by profit, you will probably find that a different set of customers have appeared at the top. Some of those customers that appeared sort of partway down your list have now very probably floated up. And that's because the customers that you recognize as providing the greatest number of sales are also probably getting discounts and special treatments and other kinds of activities surrounding them, which means that in fact you make less money from those that you might be making from another group. Which is interesting, and it might help you to focus your business slightly differently going into the future. So that's 2 different ways to think about customers, by the total value of sales and also by the profit delivered. Another way to think of customers is by segment. There are a number of different ways to segment your customers, and quite a number of those are described in the book. But let me give you 2 or 3 which will probably serve you in most businesses, so in most cases they're going to work. One way to think about your customers is by demographic, is by age or by sex or by income. And if you break up your customers by one of those demographic variables, then you might start to see something about them that otherwise wasn't clear. Another way to segment them up is by geography, like whereabouts do they live? Do certain kinds of customers behave different from customers in a different area, maybe from one country to the next? Another way to think about that is by the type of organisation that your customer comes from, either the size of the organisation or the nature of the organisation. Another way to segment your customers might be by the benefit that they get from your organisations, because different customers get different benefits even if they're buying the same product. So a number of different ways to segment your customers, and if you pick 1 or 2 of those ways and then collect your customers up under those various headings, you can then do the same kind of analysis where you look at a segment, you look at the value of that segment in total pounds per year, you have a look at the likelihood that that segment is going to continue to deliver the same that you're getting at the moment, or perhaps more in a time period, so maybe over the next 12 months or over the next 3 years. And you'll create a table that looks something like this. So when you put all that information together, your customers by segment, your customers by sales, your customers by profit, you start to see something about how they're relating to your business, who you're making money from, and where your business might be heading in the future. And that's an interesting block of information to start to analyse and understand better, and you'll take this with you when you travel into your strategic decision making workshop. So that's the first topic that I mentioned, which is thinking about customers from your point of view. Now let's think about customers from their point of view. So when we're considering customers from their point of view, there are two questions that we need to answer. The first of those is, why do they buy? What they buy from us. And the second is, how satisfied are they with what we deliver to them? And thinking about why your customer buys from you, there's two sub-questions to that. The first of those is, what needs do your products and services fulfill from your customer's point of view? And the second is, why do they buy your products and services instead of buying somebody else's products and services? So let's consider the first of those two, the needs. Every kind of product and every kind of service meets two kinds of needs: the rational needs and the emotional needs. Let me give you an example. When you buy an item of clothing, the rational need that you have is for it to provide you with some kind of protection, either protection from the sun or protection from the elements and the cold. That's the rational need. And if we only met the rational need, then we'd buy the cheapest item of clothing that we possibly could that would meet those basic criteria. But we don't. We buy more expensive clothing because clothing meets an emotional need. And the emotional need for what we wear could be that it makes us look cool, or makes us feel good, or draws attention to ourselves, or badges us as being part of a particular group, or whatever that happens to be. But there's always a mixture of the irrational and emotional. And you need to understand what those are. Just if you think this doesn't apply to you, have a look at the watch that you have on your wrist. Is this the cheapest possible timepiece that you could buy that would tell you the time accurately? My guess is that it isn't. My guess is that your choice of watch has got an awful lot to do with meeting emotional needs, because the basic rational needs could have been met by an item which is considerably less expensive. So there's that interplay of rational and emotional needs. And you need to think about the products and services that you provide, even if they're really quite mundane and basic products and services, and think, what are the rational needs, what are the emotional needs, and have I very clearly understood those and articulated them? Because if you understand the emotional needs that your products and services meet, then you have a much better chance of properly marketing them to your customer base. So when we've got the rational and emotional needs clear, we need to then understand why customers buy your products and services rather than those of your competitor. This is a really important question, and it's actually not that easy to find the answer. So let me give you a straightforward way to go out and gather that information. First of all, get some people together inside your organisation, say 10 or 15 people, something like that, and ask them to think about all the products or all the services which are like yours, and you lay them out on the table if you want, or you can just imagine that they are there. And then ask that group of people to consider, what's the difference that makes a difference? What are the ingredients that the customer is attracted to that makes them pick one over another? Ask that group of people to list those features and benefits. When you've got that list in front of you, then ask that group to score how well your organisation does, or your product does, against the competing products that are in the market, or the competing services that are in the market. Score of 10 means yes, we've done very well, 10 out of 10, we couldn't do any better, we are scoring at the highest end of the scale. A score of 1 means we're probably trailing the rest of the other offerings in the marketplace by some considerable margin. Have a look to see whether or not your own people think that, when considering the difference that makes a difference, whether or not in fact you are well placed to secure the market that's out there. Okay, now that you've got that information from your own people, do the same thing, but this time with customers. So get 10 to 15 customers together. Ask them to specify what's the difference that makes a difference in the marketplace when they're picking the kinds of products that you produce or the kinds of services that you offer. Get them to produce a list of what those are. Once you have that list, ask them to rank what they believe your product looks like against that list. So 10 out of 10 says that they think that you are the leader in the market at this particular item. 1 out of 10 says that you're trailing far behind. I would like to bet that the list that your own people produce in the first place and your customers produce are going to be different. I would like to bet that the rating that your people give your products and services and the rating that your customers give to the same products and services is also going to be different. And this has now told you something about what your product is seen to be and how your product is actually delivered in the marketplace. And this kind of information can help you to change what you do and change how you describe it in a way that makes it much more attractive to your customers. So we've answered the question, or beginning to answer the question, why do your customers buy the products and services from you? What's their rational emotional needs? How do they see your product compared with others? We've got a bit of information about that. We need to think about how satisfied your customers are, because levels of satisfaction change over time. They might be satisfied with what you're doing today, but as new offerings come onto the marketplace and as their needs change over time, they may not be satisfied with exactly the same thing in 6 months' time or 12 months' time. So we have to understand how customers' needs evolve and how their level of satisfaction changes as that evolution takes place. Let's think about ways to get information from your customers about their satisfaction levels. The first of these is observation, just watching your customers interact with your business. Many organisations have the chance for you to see your customers talking with your staff, using your product, enjoying your service, and wherever you can see this happening, then you can look at what customers seem to like, what they don't like, where there's sources of frustration, where there's an awkwardness in dealing with your product or your service. That observation will give you some very good clues about what's happening in your customers' heads and can possibly direct your focus of attention to do more serious research. So, begin with some observation. The next thing that you can do is to talk with your customers, to ask them questions, just informally. What do they like? What don't they like? What would they like you to change? It doesn't have to be a particularly strongly programmed approach to customers. Just catching up with them in places where they are, asking them some questions will again give you some clues about what you might need to follow up on in a more systematic way later on. You will, in the process of doing this, however, learn quite a lot. Probably you will be surprised by what you hear when you spend a bit of time at the front line with your customers. So, a bit of talking, a bit of conversation starts to give you a bit of an insight into what's going on in the world of your customers. After that, you can talk to your employees, although that's not directly your customers, but talk to your employees who interact with your customers and ask what they hear, what kinds of stories they hear, what kinds of questions they get asked, what kind of complaints they receive. That gives you another clue about what's going on in your customers' heads and how satisfied they are. That kind of starts you off on the journey of working out what it is that your customers like and dislike about what you do, and gives you a sense about as to what you might be able to do into the future. When you've done that, and you have some good questions in mind, then you can run some customer focus groups. These are pretty straightforward to put together, and basically you just ask some customers to come to a central point. Often you have to offer them some kind of inducement, but that's fine, just some free product or a reduction on the next bill or something like that. And when you've got them together, ask them some very good questions about the topics that you've seen that have come up through observation and talking and so on. Explore those topics with them. Find out what they like, find out what they don't like, find out how satisfied they are with you. And I suggest that you have a mixture of both open-ended questions so that you learn a certain amount from your focus group, and also some close-ended questionnaires for people to fill out that give you a score on specific aspects about your product and service, so that you can generate both objective data and also anecdotal data from your focus group sessions. Now you've got something interesting happening. Now you can take this to the next level, if you like, which is to do a survey. So what you're doing in a survey, of course, is getting a lot more information from a far greater number of customers. And you want to make sure that you've got the right kinds of questions in your survey. Your focus group will tell you will tell you what people are satisfied with and what they're not. So you can ask them very specific questions around those items to make sure that what you've heard in your focus group is in fact true of a wider population. Your focus group will tell you what kinds of things you're not doing now that you should be doing into the future, and also that can become a topic of your next survey. So your survey can collect that information about satisfaction levels with particular aspects, and also show you what you could do next. Now you've got some good information about how satisfied your customer is, and you've got a good direction about what you might want to do into the future. When you have that information, then you have a good understanding about your current customers, which is great, but you also need to understand your potential customers. And there's a few bits of information that you need to generate about those as well. Potential customers are those who should be buying products and services from you, but for some reason aren't. The research that you've just done to understand your current customers better might give you some very good clues about what you need to do to attract new customers to your business. So have a look at that and see whether or not it opens the door to being able to entice a bunch of new customers into your organisation. That's one kind of potential customer. The other kind of potential customer, particularly if you're doing business with businesses, is to see if they're the kinds of businesses who you'd like to do business with, but perhaps they're in another country and they have not yet come into your own marketplace. You might be able to encourage them to do so, or you might be able to create early links with them so when they do arrive, you're ready to take advantage of the business opportunity that provides. The other kinds of potential customers that you might have out there are businesses which have yet to start up. So you're looking at perhaps a range of small organisations which are only just beginning and they have not yet become able to buy products and services from you. But again, if you see who they are and if you can get to form an early relationship with them, you might well secure all their business. So potential customers are different for different kinds of organisations, but see who's out there, see what might be possible, see who you haven't got that you should have, and do an analysis of those and work out how to bring them in. And when you have a look at the book, there's a few good models to use that will enable you to get your fair share of those customers who as yet are not your customers. So we've thought about a number of different aspects of customers. We've thought about why customers buy your products and services. We've thought about how satisfied they are with what you provide and whether or not they want you to provide something else. And we've also considered potential customers. I hope you enjoyed this video, and do join me for the next one in this series.